What's happening, my Jack family? Coach Scott here, jacked40.com and shredded40.com. Welcome to another episode of the Jacked After 40 podcast. I've got an incredible episode coming at you today. Once again, I'm joined by one of my coaching clients, Mario, who turned 54 years young this week. We're going to talk about finding your training sweet spot. Performing a training volume that sparks muscle growth, allows you to build muscle while staying lean after 50, and a training volume that doesn't beat you down, that enhances all aspects of your life, that energizes you throughout the day rather than beating you down and you hitting that lull in the day where you just feel tired and lethargic and don't have the mental focus to perform your tasks at your best. We're also going to talk about what time of day is best for training. We're going to talk about cardio. We're going to talk about mobility. So many great things, so many golden nuggets in this podcast today. I hope you enjoy it. If you do, please do a favor and smash that thumbs up button. We'd really appreciate it. All right, Mario. So first I'd like to talk about how, recently we've been playing around with your training volume. We reduced your training volume just to make sure that you're fully recovered, allow the fatigue to dissipate from your body, and just resensitize your muscles to the training stimulus. But there's been some great kind of, I'd say, aha moments for you from this process, from this experience here of training with a bit lower volume. We're not talking about drastically low volume, but lower than the higher volume that your body has been accustomed to. And I think one of the big aha moments that I've heard from you recently is how it's impacted how you feel throughout the remainder of your day, not just during your training sessions and not just how your body's recovering, but how you have more mental focus and energy to do other things throughout the day. Whereas in the past, you'd kind of getting through the later part of your day feeling, I guess, a little bit more tired, exhausted. I think we just kind of get used to that feeling and think it's par for the course, but it shouldn't be that way. It should be, like I said, like this, our training should enhance all areas of your life. So it's been great to kind of hear your experiences and how it's impacted your energy throughout the rest of your day. So I'll have you expand on this experience for our audience here.
Yeah, it's so insightful that you mention right off the bat that we get used to this, and we get used to this being our optimal state, or it's not going to get any better. I mean, I went through, frankly, decades of a situation where I just thought, okay, that's my happiness ceiling. And I didn't realize that my moment-to-moment experience of life could actually be massively enhanced, and that I was just basically being chained by my own sense of things that was a bit distorted. So it was similar here. I just said, well, I'm in an intense training program, and it just exacts a certain amount of physical strain, and therefore I'm just going to be energized to some extent early in the day, and then it's going to taper off, and by 5 p.m. grandpa's ready to sleep, and that's kind of how that's kind of how I was rocking it for a while. And you, being a great coach, you picked up on one remark that I made, must have been 6 months ago, really, when you started keeping an eye on it. And I just mentioned to you my motivation was a bit low, and I told you a little bit about my mental state. And you said, we need to play around a bit with the intensity and the volume. And you kind of finally found the precise sweet spot. You steadily improved, and now the volume and intensity that you've programmed has really been miraculous, because I start out in the mornings and I hit the gym right away. I find that's when I'm at my peak, really, to perform, even though I know there are studies that say that people can achieve slightly more hypertrophy or whatever if they program later in the day. But for me, that is when I'm at my best. And it took me a while to figure that out. I thought, no, I'm not a morning person. Then I thought to myself, I'm learning to be a morning person. And now I'm definitely a morning person. So you can become whatever it is that makes sense in your life. You shouldn't, put limitations on yourself. I'm not a this. I'm a sedentary person. No, I'm learning to be the kind of person who breaks a sweat every day. That's a much better framing. I'm not a morning person. I'm learning to be a morning person. So that's a little bit what happened to me. So that was one way that I optimized it. And you said, yeah, try it out. It sounds like it could work for you. And then the way that you adjusted my programming was really good. We have done you know, probably less overall sets for most of the training, although some are still pretty long. And what's happened is, before, as I mentioned, around even 4, sometimes, 5, 6, I was starting to feel depleted. And I could only get in a block of work actually in the morning, like a solid 90-minute, really powerful block of work, and then another one in the afternoon. I could hit it hard. But then by the evening, I was only suitable for really chimpanzee work. I mean, just low cognitive burden work. And now I find, like right now, it's 7:50 where I am, and I'm raring to go. I mean, I could hit another hour and a half if I needed to. I'd rather not. I'd rather reserve the evenings for quieter activities and just winding down, as you talk about. But I could do it, because I have that energy now, and my sleep is good. I mean, it's things are working out. So I think those are my reflections, and it's all about the right programming and a coach who is prepared to listen to you, and just sort of pay attention to the mental and emotional side, in addition to, oh, looks like your delts are coming in or whatever. There's more to it.
There really is, and I think that's the beauty of the one-on-one coaching and even just personalization of your own training plan. It's great to kind of see the recommendations out there for what training volumes are optimal. And really it is a broad range. And you do hear like training over 40, some coaches will recommend we should be training a little bit less, but really it just comes down to you've got to have that awareness yourself, and you realize there's so many more factors to pay attention to, not just how you're training, but how it impacts the rest of your day as well. So it's just been fantastic to see you have that heightened sense of awareness there. And what one aspect of kind of finding your training sweet spot as well is when it comes to training volume, like having training with a little bit less volume, I find you can be more mentally engaged in the process, in the workouts. You're not kind of pacing yourself. You're not kind of thinking, you're looking at the thing, going, I got so much work to do. I better,
Mm-hmm.
it's just not as daunting, and you can give the best of yourself to that training experience. And I find you can leave that gym feeling invigorated. And so it's good to kind of find that sweet spot. And again, that sweet spot's going to be more of a range. And it's not necessarily to say that you always have to train in that sweet spot as well. It's great to have those opportunities to challenge yourself, but it
Mm-hmm.
really has to be during a time where you can give the best of yourself to a higher training plan. Like back when we initially made this change, lower volume, it's been the best thing for you based on life situations and all that kind of stuff. But when you have that mental energy and your life is freed up to, all right, let's do a short block of just being aggressive and really reaching, it's fun to overreach at that time. Then you dial it back down to your sweet spot.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And there's a time to push it, and usually I'm operating in this, trying to achieve perfect form, for example, and but today I sent you a little video where I was just basically muscling up more, probably a little bit more weight than would have been optimal. But there's a time to do training in that way where you have a little bit more body English. But most of the time, for me, consistency is king. 90% of it is just showing up in the gym. And then I would say form is queen. If you're not getting your form right, then all is lost. And then I would say intensity is maybe like a prince, that kind of needs to make an appearance, or there's no future for the kingdom. You're just going to sustain, you're just going to maintain. So you do need that kind of those periods of intensity, and you have to be pushing yourself, or your body is just going to say, no, thanks. You're not doing enough to make me want to change my shape. So, we're just going to stay more or less where we are. And it's a balance. It's a balance, because if you hit it too hard, fine, you might achieve some great stimulus for that workout, but you're digging a hole for the next workout. You got to think of it sort of as a series of short journeys and overall a long journey. So
100%, 100%. And again, awareness. I'm always talking about this in my videos. Just it really is the best asset we have in this journey is having that heightened sense, like having a fun sense, like a playful sense of experimenting and trying some different things, but having that heightened sense of awareness of how it impacts us. And the one thing was like you said, you're not a morning person, but you kind of shifted in the morning workouts. What was the trigger for you? Like what made you want to switch things up? What time of day were you typically training at before, and what got you to make the change to the morning?
yeah, I was training. I sort of had it in my mind that I needed to get some work out the door first thing, and then eat breakfast, and then a couple of hours after that I would hit the gym feeling pretty good. But I started to realize that you know starting the day with that triumph of having completed my daily service, that really set the tone for a victorious day. I've won the day, because for me, this training is more than just a physique training as such. It's a longevity exercise. It's a tonic. It's fun. I want to keep it fun. Firas Zahabi, famous MMA coach, is always talking about how your training has to feel kind of, there has to be a fun dimension to it. And I have the most fun if I hit it early. And then again, it's an apex habit for me. It's not just something that improves my physical state. It has a cascading benefits, I would say, that sort of enhance all aspects of my life. It's hard to explain to people that aren't engaged in this, because some of them have an idea that it's a bit of a hedonistic, self-involved activity. But the reality is, eventually health is going to become your primary concern in life. So if you can sort of hold off that period of time until very late in life, this is the best way to enjoy your brief time on earth. And a guy on my team said something that really landed with me. He said, uh, work is worship. And he said that in the context of my offering him a compliment for doing the unglamorous tasks, the grind, the things that keep the wheels on the machine, the unsung heroic work that needs to get done. And he said, no, work is worship. It's something that there's something kind of sacred about it for me. And I can see that. And I guess what I'm trying to say is that, well, I'm trying to say a lot of things, but the point is that it is a holistic practice. It's not just about your body. And people that aren't involved in it have not had the opportunity to experience it, don't always understand that. But take it from me, it's been life-changing, and in particular, working with you has been really life-changing. So thanks again.
I, I appreciate it big time. It's a joy to work with you, and I learned from the process of coaching you as well as my other clients. We're again always learning and growing together, which is really the beauty of this process. It makes it so much more rewarding, not just learning and growing on our own, but with others, building each other up throughout the process.
Yeah.
Now, when shifting your training to the morning, I know for me personally, it takes a little while for my body to get going. And whenever I've had morning workouts, I've had to do a little bit extra warming up and stuff like that. Have you found that with your morning workouts? Any extra little mobility stuff that you had to do, or warm up sets, workup sets, in order to get going, or are you pretty
I,
limber right away?
no, I would say, the main difficulty for me was engaging and igniting the mental machinery, sort of convincing myself that I was capable of getting out of bed, having a cup of coffee, puttering around a little bit, but fundamentally just getting out of bed and getting into the gym. And this was something that for me, I would come up with a million excuses for why it was not possible for me. So mainly it was the mental obstacle. And that's why my favorite mantra at the moment is the unofficial slogan I understand of the US Navy SEALs, which is just shut up and do it. Don't give your brain too much time to come up with clever reasons why you ought to be excused from this challenge or whatever. So for me, that was the main thing. And I would say that I would still need about the same amount of mobility work regardless of really when I do the training. But I have to say, mobility has become such a non-negotiable for me. It used to be a little bit of a nice to have, but I've come to realize that by undertaking just 10 or 15 minutes of mobility, I can avoid, to a large extent, the possibility of an injury that is going to leave me dejected and having to overcome all sorts of other hurdles on top of undertaking the mild ordeal of getting in the gym and completing the workout. And if it takes me 10 or 15 minutes of elbow circles and making sure my rotator cuff is lubricated, you're goddamn right I'm going to do it, because it's terrible to go in. You know how it is. We pick up little nicks here and there, and it's tough to go into the gym with laboring under those kinds of even small injuries. It's not fun. And the great thing about training with you, as I mentioned, I think in one of the last appearances here, was that I can now do, for example, rows without any pain in my elbow, because of the great programming that you include, where you warm us up. The first exercises that we do are really, really calibrated to enable us to hit it hard without injuring ourselves in the future sequence. And so that's another part of it. So you're already incorporating mobility in a sense, in the workout itself. And I would also say that my practice has also been, you talked about what should you do between sets, and some people sit there on the bench looking at their Instagram, and this is not ideal. You ought to be moving around a bit. I actually get a lot of mobility done in between sets. And that's something that has benefited me a lot. Particularly, I do mobility on parts of the body that I'm not working. That's something that I find as intuitive. But before the workout, I do, just a few things. I mean, it's really nothing impressive. I mix it up a little bit, but I want to feel ready to kill it. And the only way I can feel confident is by doing a little bit of that mobility. I heard an orthopedic surgeon say that if Dan Marino had limbered up his Achilles a little bit, it wouldn't have snapped late in his career. I don't know if that's true or not, but that stuck with me. I just I need a little bit of that insurance. It gives me confidence, and that's my kind of the way I look at it. The mobility part. It's no longer an optional thing that I might not feel like doing. So whatever. Yeah.
I love it. And the great thing is that, yeah, it's just 10 to 15 minutes. I see some people who I think they take the mobility to an extreme, and like it's half an hour, 45 minutes, and they hardly have any time to work out.
Absolutely.
And then, yeah, they're in the
Yeah.
gym forever. It doesn't need to be
No.
excruciating long. Just get it quick and done. And I really love how you're talking about doing mobility for body parts that aren't going to interfere with your training, but they're going to benefit you
Hmm.
overall. So that's just making the maximum use of your time while you're there. So I love that. And I love non-negotiables. And one of them that you continue to bring up is cardio. You've been incorporating cardiovascular conditioning into your overall lifestyle, and it's had a very positive impact on you. So why has I'm sure that's one of the reasons why it's non-negotiable for you is that you are experiencing the benefits. Speak of those benefits and what kind of cardio training that you've been incorporating and how you've been incorporating it into your day.
Yeah, I really was motivated to sort of get my mind around the idea that I would actually devote 45 minutes to elliptical training every day, just by reading a lot about habit formation and how we are just a collection of habits and how our habits determine our future. And this sort of eased me into the idea. So I sort of started with, okay, it's a micro habit, and for me, micro meant, maybe I'd do 15, 20 minutes. And I slowly started to grow the habit to the point where I just said, look, there's nothing so important that I can't put in an extra 10 minutes or 15 minutes. And before I knew it, I was doing it every day. And in terms of leanness that you can achieve just with this simple, moderate intensity, 220 minus your age times 0.75, that's the number of beats per minute. I'm at around 110 to 125, let's say, beats per minute on the elliptical. And I used to listen to a lot of digital content when I was doing it because it was effortless. And then I started realizing, I'm consuming all this digital content, and that's okay if you're doing something else that's productive. It's sort of, but what if I actually tried to make it a meditative exercise? And that's when I've sort of just, I don't know if this is probably not where you were going, but I have started using this app, this Pizizz app, Pzizz, which has a fantastic focus module. And the one I like is called Puzzle. J.K. Rowling's a big fan of it. I mean, that's the probably most famous proponent of this particular software. But yeah, so I listen to this Pizizz app for 45 minutes while I do the elliptical, and just it sort of optimizes my brain's sort of processing of different issues that I'm facing, or I might go through my to-do list, or I might do some visualization. And the combination of movement, many great thinkers have talked about how they arrived at a lot of their great ideas while walking. And I think the combination of moving along with this sort of meditative trance-like state, sometimes I'll close my eyes, not necessarily, it just is such a productive time now, but in a kind of a gentle, sort of holistic kind of productive sense. It's not like I'm there cogitating and running numbers or whatever. It helps me think about issues of purpose, think about what my ideal day would be like tomorrow or in 5 years or whatever. And so I find that I'm actually really having an enhanced cardio, full service cardio experience. And that's another reason why I've now come to look forward to it. Whereas before it was just kind of like, well, I guess I'll watch some YouTube and I'll just get through it. Now it's actually a really important part of my day, and I do it every day, whether I train or not. And I think that also helps me a little bit with satiety signaling on days when I'm not lifting. Because if you don't exercise, especially if you don't resistance train, your satiety signaling is not as primed, I find. And I think the studies back that up. Basically, that's why a lot of the audience might experience more difficulty sticking to their calorie budget on days they don't lift. I mean, that's something that really clearly happens to me. So that helps a lot. And again, you don't want to go crazy with mobility. You don't want to go crazy with cardio. You don't want to go crazy with anything. Just stick to the program. You set forth the software for us to follow. We just follow it, and it works. Something else that anyway, I'll leave it there. But that's
We'll extend. That's just freaking gold right there. That is so many different things. Well, first of all, I mean, people just looking at you, you got lean, you've stayed lean, and it's been a slow and steady process of building your physique. All this extra cardio that you've incorporated into your lifestyle, it is not hindering your progress or your gains.
Mhm.
If anything, it is helping you in many different kinds. There's just so many health benefits. There's so many cardiovascular benefits. There's great recovery benefits from incorporating cardiovascular training in there. But what I really love is the conversation you just had on it. We are, I think, as a society, we overconsume information and we overconsume so much. I mean, it's great. We want to learn and we want to grow, but we spend such little time looking within. There's so much
Mhm.
learning and growing we can do from being in that meditative state, having that heightened sense of awareness, and reflecting on how can we better ourselves internally, our mental states, all that stuff. So that, I think, once again, that is maximizing the use of your time. That's time. Yeah, sure, you could listen to an audiobook, you can watch a YouTube video, you can learn some different little tips and tricks there, but I think that is a much better use of your time. I've definitely got to get on board with that app because that sounds like a fantastic experience. I do find even my morning walks, my evening walks are somewhat meditative for me as well.
Mhm. Sure.
I used to do the same thing. I used to consume material when I was for my walks. I'd have my headphones on, listening to podcasts, educating myself. Now I'm like, this is the time for me to be very grounded in the moment, to pay attention to what's in front of me. And it's amazing the feelings that can overwhelm you when you are not only seeing what's right in front of you, but also feeling like what's within at the same time as well. Like you're actually experiencing it and recognizing what brings great joy to your life and all that stuff. So, dude, that's just freaking phenomenal. Fantastic
You
share.
know,
I've got to get on board
I,
with that app for sure, especially these winter months where I know I'll be indoors doing some cardio rather than
yeah, for sure.
outdoors.
But I just was going to say, modern knowledge workers or whatever, people that are exposed to a lot of digital stuff. I mean, we spend our lives in two states. We're either just passively consuming content like, Netflix or whatever, or we are being bombarded by these little digital interruptions. And so exactly what you said, we don't actually cordon off time to do what humans have been doing for hundreds of thousands, millions of years, 1.5 million years anyway, which is just to think, just to allow your mind to do its business. And it's crazy that we just are so hyper stimulated. And you look online and there are all these ads for, here's how top executives fight boredom. It's Cal Newport talks about, get comfortable with some boredom. I mean,
Mhm.
that is super important for you to be able to focus. Focus is going to be the great differentiator in the future. So few people will be able to focus and create great things and do deep work. So this is all connected to that. And yeah, anyway, cool.
I love it. Yeah, great topic there for sure. This has just been
All
a
right.
fantastic discussion overall. I just
Thank you.
really appreciate you sharing your experiences, your journey. It's going to help a lot of our fellow, I'm sure a lot of our fellow men over 40 can relate to a lot of what you've talked about and can take what you've shared and use it themselves to build upon their lifestyle as well. And dude, I love our conversations. This has been fantastic. So thanks again
It's my
for
pleasure,
joining
Scott.
me here.
Thanks so much for the invitation. It's really a pleasure and a privilege.
Hope you enjoyed today's episode of the Jacked After 40 podcast. We'd love to hear from you. Please take a moment to drop a comment down below to share your thoughts, share your insights, and share your feedback. If you enjoyed today's podcast, please do us a favor and smash that thumbs up button. We'd really, really appreciate it. And if you know a fellow bro who would benefit from listening to today's podcast, please do him a favor and share it with them. Before you go, don't forget to download your free guide, Jacked After 40. Have yourself an amazing day. Catch you next podcast.